In 2010, Gainax made the 13-episode hit anime Panty and Stocking. It was a huge success with a large following gaining suit, to the point where a sequel has recently been planned. It's still not here. The show featured Gainax's signature fast-paced animation, before they split and it became Trigger's signature animation. But one unique factor was its cartoon inspiration. The show was done in the style of American cartoons, not just the look, but also with its rude and crude attitude. Because of that, it's seen as kind of a middle ground between anime and cartoons, on the border between tribute and parody. Both cartoon fans love it and anime fans love it, but ever since its release, I've always thought, what's the American answer to this? What's the American Panty and Stocking? A cartoon that's not just anime inspired, you can find a cornucopia of that. I mean an anime tribute, something that parodies anime but with love. Well, after 8 years of searching, it's been 8 years, I think I found the answer. Ballmasterz. Airing on Adult Swim and created by Kristni Karaknis from Super Jail fame. But unlike Super Jail, the story in here is much more laid out. Years ago, in the past, there was something known as the Rad Wars, which turned everything into Fist of the North Star on even more steroids. A godlike ruler known as Krazar stopped all rules by creating a blood sport known as the Game. Wow, that's an old meme. The game has 2 rules.
One game, 2 rules. Use the ball to kill, use the ball to score. Thanks to the game, there's no more war.
Put the team's ball in the goal, and that's it. Everyone else gets killed in the process. Well, not really. There's a thing called Bio that brings them back to life, so they're technically immortal on the field. Everyone has their own comparison to what the game is like, from Mutant League to Thunderdome. But personally, I see some red line action mixed with that rollerball arc from Battle Angel. Anyway, the best team in the game were known as the Boom Boom Boys, but when their star player Gats loses fame and her mind, she has to redeem herself by joining the worst team in the game, the Leptons. If she can make the team win just 1 game, she can go back to her old team.
Oh, I'm putting you back in, but you're going to have to earn it.
The story is very fast-paced, and honestly, it doesn't seem like it's the main factor of the show. It's more about the absurd situations. In the end, it's an episodic show with little more than references to connect the show together. These episodic storylines feel very Saturday morning cartoony, almost having a Monster of the Week formula. It's kind of weird seeing that everything else in the show is anime to the extreme. Watching one episode and you can see all the inspirations to anime as a medium. Starting with the characters, Gats got herself in the shitter after she was unhappy with her place on the team. She's now a drunken loser who doesn't give a fuck about what's going on.
You ding-dongs are hopeless. I'm hitting the ball.
She's voiced by Natasha Loin from Orange is the New Black fame. Just take her character from that show and turn it to 11.
We're having sex in a fucking chapel. Come on, you wanna give me blue balls?
It feels like she's a parody of those inspirational big sibling characters you see in anime. Ace is the little kid of the group who's always overly optimistic about everything. He's a parody of those happy-go-lucky friendship is magic characters. Only difference is that in here, no one gives a shit.
I talked to her! I actually talked to her!
Shut up!
He's voiced by Jessica DeCono, probably most famous as Tambury or Flame Princess. Baby Ball, who's the ball they play with. Yeah, in the sport, the ball is a living thing. He's a trash talker who's just in it for the fame. And he gives just more shits than Gats. He kinda reminds me of the magical object character in fantasy anime. And he's voiced by Master Shake himself, Dinah Schneider.
Wahoo! Hey, I want to get some drinks with my very best pals. So guys, I'll see you Monday.
All the other team characters do stuff, but like I said, it goes by so fast that they're just kind of there. Dee Dee's the cute, nice fan service character, but with an angry alter ego.
And lure him under an overpass with my feminine wiles, and then
Lita's the stoner of the group, I guess.
Like a moth drawn to a flame, I cannot look away. Dang, where'd she get those nachos?
Flip is the ultimate warrior character who's just a torso and a helmet. The joke is that every time he's about to fight, he gives this elaborate backstory and then fails. Lulu's a monster girl and Bob's a silent alien. I think it's a reference to Silent Bob? I don't know. Like I said, most of these characters are just kind of there and only add for quick jokes and are really only sometimes central plot points of the episode.
He and I were so close to maybe almost someday being casual work friends.
The show's fast-paced, and personally, I'm kind of on the fence about it. On one hand, there are moments where it goes by so fast I didn't even get the joke. I'm fine with fast-paced shows, but only when the story, tone, and comedy work well with it. The tone and attitude are kind of fast-paced. You can't linger on these shots for long or also just be gross. But story and comedy, I don't know. I feel like if it took its time, we could have a somewhat serious adult action cartoon on our hands. But on the other hand, a lot of jokes and episodes work well in this format. It has that classic Adult Swim situational humor where the comedy comes from the context, which can really only work in that 11-minute time slot. But again, there are moments where I wonder what it would be like if it had a 30-minute length, and then other times I think the length is perfect and... Hey, speaking of fast-paced, what about the animation? The show is either fast-paced or has that cut-and-paste drag animation that anyone in Sony Vegas can do. Which I can't tell if it's trying to pay tribute to low-budget anime or if it's just low-budget. I think it's both, because other times when the animation is fast-paced, there'll be an action scene where it'll go all colorless and become pencil sketches. Again, this might be an artistic decision, seeing that removing color from action makes you focus more on the action. Did you know that the director's cut of Fury Road was supposed to be monochrome? Because the idea of an action scene is to limit the distractions as much as possible. Either keep all the action in one frame so that you don't stray off, or keep a good sense of geography. But when all else fails, you could just remove the distractions altogether. Hence, no backgrounds and void of color. But again, I think it's a little of both. Seeing that they may have time and money to color in and clean up everything else but the action scene. But one thing I know was intentional was the little subtle anime-style moments of animation. Everything from the lip wobble, blind background, wide eye reactions, sweat drops, even some of the background characters look like something you'll see out of a gag anime. And of course, references. The plot sounds like something from a sports anime. There's a weapon-fused styles transformation sequences. This guy looks like every long-haired pretty boy ever. There's a reference to Akira, Fist of the North Star, Gurren Lagann, Dragon Ball. It really does feel like a love letter to anime. But it also has some cartoon in there. Like I said, it's from the mind of Super Jail, and that show was Ren and Stimpy on bath salts. Super Jail feels like a violent, experimental tribute to classic cartoons of old. The characters have that loose animation that kind of reminds me of old Rubble Hose cartoons. While in Ballmasterz, it's the opposite. It's anime stiff with characters dragging and talking only in 12 frames of animation. And just like anime, when there's action, it goes all out. I like both shows, but when I'm watching Super Jail, I don't know what the fuck's going on. But in here, it's more tamed and toned down. Less people get killed per episode. In fact, almost none at all. It's almost PG-13. You could tell they're trying to have a balance of story and crazy animation, which I think it succeeds in. Sure, some episodes may be more than others, but a majority of them, it's a good balance. Christie's last show tried to do the same thing. It even aired on Cartoon Network rather than Adult Swim. We are starting to see this fad in shows where the divide between young and old is slimming down. We're starting to see shows with a middle ground. In America, we never had a middle ground. It was either 13-year-old or 18. I think that's why anime blew up in the 2000s. Japan had a middle ground. Hell, Adult Swim helped create that middle ground. And now, 20 to 30-year-olds who grew up with that stuff are making that middle ground. I can't wait for the new shows this generation of animation has in store. I have high hopes for it. And as for Ballmasterz, I hope the best for it. I hope it stays strong and is fondly remembered for being in a time of unique animation. But knowing Adult Swim is probably going to be replaced with Rick and Morty reruns.